Evam and Richard Jordan Productions present, in association with Pleasance, Ali J. The only partition that remains is within. Written by Shekinah Jacob, directed by Karthik Kumar.
No! No! I did not do it! I don't know these men in the pictures, sir! Sir, please! What did they look like? They look like Pakistanis, sir! Sir, even if you go on till I die, I can't tell you the names because I don't know the names! My name I know, sir. It's Ali! Azim Ali! Ya Allah. I see you. They told me this is what happens on death row. People start seeing things apparently. Things they have craved for all their lives. It reaches fever pitch and some of them materialize. Visually, sensually. Unbelievable, I know, but it's true because I can see you. People staring death in the face don't lie. My friend and fellow inmate, the guy who was hung in 2004, said he saw floating plates of mutton dum biryani with ghee-drenched flecks of fried onion on top. The guy who was hung last week said he had begun dreaming of mind-blowing, non-stop sex. So my fantasy comes as no surprise, huh? Captive audience. So death must be pretty near. Must be just 3 days away because I'm sure they'll pick a symbolic day like August 15th, Independence Day. The thing about my life is, what's the point of remembering anything in your life, Mr. Azim Ali J, when that very life is going to be choked out of you by a 5-inch thick rope in just a few days? I bet you're thinking that. I couldn't blame you. But in the end, does one remember the roses or regret the scars? But in spite of the scars, it's a good-looking face, right? I mean, it couldn't have changed all that much in the past 10 years in prison. And what about George Clooney? George Clooney, he just got better looking as he got older. That's what Bharati used to keep saying. I'm sure you're a better actor than he is. I've kept my body in tip-top condition, just the way every actor's body should be. This face surely doesn't deserve the gallows. I'm sure you'd all scream it out in my defense. Azim Ali J is a stellar talent. He has the body of Salman Khan. He has the acting talent of Amir Khan and has the brilliance of Shah Rukh Khan. Let him live. Let him live. Let him live. Try telling that to my interrogators. India has the highest number of cases of police torture and custodial deaths amongst the world's democracies. Did you know that? No. The cleverest of the torture tactics is the roller. It's placed on the naked thighs of the prisoner, and the fattest of the policemen climbs onto it as it rolls down the thighs. The pain shoots through known and unknown muscles like a silent scream, but the treatment leaves no marks or scars. On one of the rollers, I clearly saw a word engraved. And I remember trying to keep focus on how exactly was this engraving done. Was it with a metal drill or with a knife? The word inscribed neatly in capital letters was, "Welcome." Hey, vandana, vandana, vandasana, kundano, kasu kurtu vandavanga, kai tatti sirigano, kasu kurtu vandavanga, kai tatti sirigano. Oh, I'm so sorry, this is Indian interactive street theatre style. Let me do it in English for you. Oh, welcome sir, welcome madam, take your seat and rest your feet. All you paying public, clap your hands and watch the drink. 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 Vandana, vandana, vandana. Stop music. The job of an actor is to entertain. I'm perfectly aware of that, I assure you. Here's a nugget of interesting information. India has the highest number of cases of police torture and custodial deaths amongst the world's democracies. Did you already know that? Did I just tell you that? It's Tuesday, the day my sister Fatima comes to visit me. The only one in the family for whom I still exist. Therefore, the only one who exists for me. She was telling me that you people were getting upset that Amir Ajmal Kasab, the lone surviving terrorist of the Mumbai attacks of 2008, the guy in my next cell, was getting fed mutton biryani in prison. Apparently, you people were outraged that the ruthless Kasab was getting fat on mutton biryani paid for by the Indian government. Ho 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 ho! Mair, no one who works in any prison kitchen in this country knows how to make any dish with meat in it. So forget mutton biryani. You know what keeps me awake some nights? It's this memory of a wedding reception I once went to. I can see myself sitting on those long rows of tables under the fairy lights. I can see them rolling the white sheet of paper on the table. The smell of the wet green banana leaf plate. And the hot aroma of the mutton biryani as it slapped onto it in one huge pile. And then this is what torments me. I draw a blank. I can't remember enjoying the taste. I just ate because I was hungry. I didn't savor it. I can never forgive myself for that, you know. You know, I read somewhere in some countries there is this prison chef whose main job is get this, is to prepare the last meal for inmates before they're sent off to be executed. Their last meal on earth. One guy's last meal read, chicken fried steak on white gravy. And I keep wondering, what if the guy eating this particular last meal, what if he didn't enjoy it? What if the chef had messed up the white gravy and made it too salty to be eaten? Would the condemned man be able to grab the chef by the collar and ask him to make it again? No, huh? He's just an animal in a kennel at the mercy of another human being, without a chance, without a second chance, and that's all wrong. It's just not fair. I'm sorry I got carried away. But screaming, it's not me, I'm innocent, even 1,000 times is not enough for them. They were looking for an Azim and I fit that description. They have that Azim. The question they always ask me is, why did you go all the way from Chennai to Ahmedabad a day before the Godhra riots? Why would a man whose leave record shows that he doesn't even avail of his annual leave all of a sudden take 4 days off from work and go with a fellow Muslim colleague all the way to Gujarat? Good question. No point telling them that my grandfather was a Gujarati and I wanted to see the ground he'd walked on. Looking for solace, looking for some hidden love in the earth that carried his remains, hoping desperately that it could be poured into my shattered heart. Why was my heart shattered, they wanted to know. Was it cracking under the strain of the evil I had planned to perpetrate in Gujarat? They wanted to know. So I had to tell them about the girl, or how she broke my heart, how I felt like I couldn't breathe through the grief as if my lungs had caved in. And so I had to take that impulsive trip to Gujarat. They said it sounded like a storyline from a Bollywood film I must have seen. Bharti walked into my life one fateful June morning. I was a 28-year-old male with no previous track record of bedding, wooing, or even drooling over a girl. I secretly worried about the lack of enterprise on my part. I blame it on my mother, both my good looks and my emasculated heart. Indian classical dance style. Good looks, emasculated heart. The earliest memories of my mother's love for me was that it felt heavy, like a too sweet big glass of pink milk faluda sitting in the pit of my stomach. She hovered on me like a guardian angel, almost swooning in her disbelief that she had produced such a perfect child. She visualized a halo into being over my head, the weight of which threatened to swing me off balance. I had to live up to it. Doesn't he look like an angel? Allah's perfect gift to me, I once heard her telling my aunt. Oh yes, 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 you are blessed. Great things will be bestowed upon your family through this son of yours. My mother came from an upper middle class family, and my father had promised her greater material comforts once they were married, and his sweet making business took off in a big way. It never did. It was understood where my father had failed, I was supposed to succeed. The responsibility of being my mother's source of happiness and my father's hope for success made me walk through life like a horse with blinkers. No left or right, just plodding on straight ahead. No grays, no rainbow colors, just black or white. Just black or white. Just black or white. Just black. Graceful, no? Most things I desired were considered a sin. Haram! Fun was haram, as the saying goes. In puberty, I never looked at a girl twice. I felt that even if I thought the steamy words or lingered over the body parts, the halo would dim and she would know. Fun was haram! But this was all years before. Years before I returned to India. Years before I met my Bharati. When she walked into my cubicle that fateful June morning, my first unholy thought was, her behind was shaped like an apple. I really wanted to see it. She was bending down to retrieve the pen that had rolled under my table. I pretended to inadvertently kick it a bit further and crouched on the floor to get it for her. Sorry, she said. Sorry was the first word she said to me. Sorry was also the last word she said to me. 10 years ago, before I left for Ahmedabad, the scene of my crime. No problem at all, no problem at all, no problem at all, I heard myself say as I gave the pen back to my Bharati, wondering why on earth I couldn't stop myself from saying it thrice. She smelt of talcum powder. Or maybe I just associated that smell with the idea of love. There's something called Facebook nowadays that you people use to get in touch with strangers. Fatih told me about it. In those days, there was no such thing, huh? A man had to think on his feet. I didn't even know if Bharati's cubicle was on the same floor as I, or if I'll ever get to see her again. So I said, oh, there was a lizard in the coffee machine this morning. Better not to use it for a week. But if you want some good coffee, I can show you the best coffee in the street. And I quickly ushered her outside. Looked like there'd been a 5-minute rain. We walked on the road to Sangeeta restaurant and had filter coffee. In Chennai, the smallest of showers qualifies as romantic climate. I had a spring in my step and the song, Oh ho, Megamandado, tarara, tarara, playing on my lips. I banished the thought of Bharti dancing in the rain in a very wet sari. Stay calm, I admonished myself. I didn't want to get carried away, get ahead of the situation. I ushered her to the corner table in the AC section. I knew nothing about her. And this irrational, unexpected love frightened me. I wish I was overwhelmed by fear instead of love, because then I would have just run away, not seen her again, not left my heart wide open to love, not spent the last 10 years shut away behind these walls. But instead, fool that I was, I said, Bharti, right? She said, yeah, that's my name. I had no idea what I was going to say to her after that. On the wall opposite, there was a shiny poster mounted on a plastic frame. It said, life is love, love is life, it stated. So I asked her, what do you want out of life? If there are 4 things that would make you live happily ever after, what would they be? I expected her to say why I thought she would answer such a personal question when we had only just met. But instead, she seemed intrigued by it. She took a napkin and wrote on it. Number 1, freedom, complete independence from parents, in brackets. Number 2, a small house with a cat and a dog. Number 3, a Persian carpet from M.A. Jacobs. Number 4, a husband who'd make a filter coffee every morning. This one had a smiley drawn next to it. I read the list again, swallowing the lump that rose in my throat. I wanted to be the man who'd fulfill all those wishes. I wish she'd write 10 more things so that I could fulfill them as well. One coffee led to another, and we were on the path to love and companionship. One night after watching the movie Titanic, I proposed to her. She laughed. She said, I knew you were going to ask me soon and I'm glad you did. But are you sure? You're so much older than I am. Of course I'm sure. Everyone said you're a confirmed bachelor at work. That's why I felt safe going out with you in the first place. Who's everyone? Mohan said that for sure, trying to think of who else. Mohan. Tried to spit that word out like a dirty adjective. He was the young man who'd suddenly appeared on the scene after his offshore posting in South Africa or somewhere. Got the company some great business from there and earned the CEO's undying gratitude. Legend went that he could have stayed on there and moved to any cozy spot in any first world country of his choice. But no, he wanted to come right back and serve his country to prevent brain drain. The pure Atma, the pure soul, women gushed in his wake. And he was all of just 24. Hairline receding, spindly frame, non-existent biceps, but IQ hitting the roof. Oh no, not IQ, EQ. He really knew how to work the masses. He would sweep his eyes around the boardroom and bend everyone there to his wishes. I first met Mohan at a welcome party in his honor. I was asked to make a speech on behalf of the natives, and although I declined on the grounds that I did not know him very well, I was still pushed up in front because no one else knew him very well either, and I was generally the guy who made the speeches. I stood up, noting from the corner of my eye the exact spot where Bharti was sitting. I gave her a small smile, which was meant to say, we belong to each other more than we did to anyone else in this room full of people. She fluttered her eyelashes and gave me a half smile. I felt taller. It's my privilege to welcome to our country and to our company Mr. G. Mohan, whose illustrious career has been an inspiration to us all. We look forward to working with him more closely. Everyone clapped and coffee was passed around. When Mohan rose to respond to my speech, the first thing he said was, it is good to know that I've come back to a better India. An India where even a Muslim such as Mr. Azim Ali is a team leader. can't remember the rest of his speech. I can only remember the hot spot of humiliation that felt like a physical pain in my chest. The phrase, even a Muslim such as Azim Ali, seemed to bounce off the walls, its echo growing louder and louder and drowning out everything else he was saying. I heard them chuckle at his anecdotes. I glanced sideways to catch Bharti's eyes. Her gaze was fixed on Mohan. She was smiling at something he just said. Mosquito situation used to be really bad in here until last year. For 9 years, I hardly got a good night's sleep. I would keep slapping them away until dawn broke and they flew out through the bars of the window into the morning light. Last year, a couple of inmates died of dengue fever, so they spray some kind of pesticide now to get rid of them. No more mosquitoes. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss them. Without the shrill hum of the bloodthirsty female mosquito, the silence of the nightfall is so thick I could cut through it with a knife. I'd imagine them watching me with beady mosquito eyes, too small for the human eye to see. I'd imagine them waiting in silence for a speech, an act, a show. Entertain us, Azim Ali Jay! They seem to be screeching at wavelengths of supersonic intensity. Bowing to the pressure, I would perform them my favorite dramatic pieces. When I was done, I'd imagine the clap, clap, clapping of the invisible mosquito wings as they rose through the night air at the end of my performance. 3 years ago, I had a spider there with a broken leg. He used to crawl around the window slowly, spinning his web. I named him Hamlet after my favorite dramatic character. Hamlet, my spider. He stayed in here for 28 days. I gave him the first bite from all my meals. I wished that he would find himself a wife and then they'll have babies and then I'll have proper company. It was all so exciting. One day a guard accidentally stepped on Hamlet and washed him to death. I almost hit him. I want to fracture his jaw. Once almost hit Mohan like that once. I had this overwhelming urge to slap the complacency, the smugness cloaked in religiosity, his talk of karma, dharma, ahimsa, slap it, fatak, right out of his stupid pundit head. I had begun calling him the pundit behind his back, hoping that the nickname would catch on in a rather derogatory fashion and shut him up for good. But instead the idea boomeranged. Everyone started calling him the pundit in almost reverential tones. Bharti would keep quoting him after every board meeting. She once went out for coffee with him, apparently on some work-related issue. The pundit came up to me after that and said that it was so nice getting to know her. We have so much in common, he said. That's when I almost hit him. I raised my hand to the side of his head and lowered it with the greatest of effort. I know I was overreacting, but it was just the way he said it. You know, Azim, Bharti and I have so much in common. For the first time, I felt like I was a Muslim and she was a Hindu, and maybe the chasm between us might just be too wide. This is probably what I needed to spur me into action. I went straight to Bharti and asked her, when exactly are we getting married? She said she would have to ask her father because after all, he was a high caste Hindu and I was a Muslim. The minute the words were out of her mouth, she tried to touch my arm, but I pulled away. Why don't you ask your parents to come and meet my father, she said. I said, yeah, I'll think about it. What was there to think about? If a journalist's father knew that my Abba was after all just a sweet vendor. Abba Jan. I haven't seen Abba since I returned from London. When When I returned from London, I didn't have the heart to go see him. You see, he'd sold the only piece of land he owned back in his village, pawned my mother's wedding jewelry, and taken out every rupee note he'd sewn into his mattress to fund my course in hotel management in London. Fatih said he still made the palkowas and other milk sweets in the 3-room house that I once lived in as a child. Realistic reenactment. All our belongings used to be hung on a string that was tied at a diagonal from one end of the room to the other. The cooking was done in the biggest room because of all the pots and the smoke. The house always smelled of stale milk and the smell clung to our clothes and our hair. They called me Palkaran at school, the milk boy. Hey Palkaran, hey milk boy, hey don't call me that. Hey Palkaran, hey don't call me that. I'm not a Palkaran. I'm not. Long evenings were spent in helping my mother wash the huge urns in which the milk sweets were made. They were very heavy for a woman to lift, so my help was required. Every last trace of desiccated milk had to be removed as if our very lives depended on it. In fact, our lives did depend on it, because even a small bit of stale milk will curdle all the milk for the new batch of sweets, depriving us of the slim margin of profit my father made each day. Although we were second generation Gujarati Muslims, my father had great belief in the Guju genes. A head for business and a love for sweets had survived in his only son. My father was actually a very funny guy. He had great dramatic talent, although he would have been mortified to know that those were the genes that actually got passed down. Abba! What's this? Hey! Azim Bhaiya! Atta. Why the long face? Tough day at school, huh? I'm not talking to you, Abba. It's very bad of you not to come for my play today. Hey! Why would I want to watch my son embarrass himself in front of the whole school, huh? It's not embarrassing being in a play. It's a great honor. Everyone said I did so well. I had the lead role. You get good marks in science or mathematics, I'll make a huge milk sweet just for you. I hate milk. Hey! The inheritor of a milk sweet empire cannot waste his time on child's play. You have so much more to achieve, da. Inheritor? Very funny. And there's no milk sweet empire, just a big pot over there. Hey, stop doing drama like a silly film heroine. Mujhe chhod do, let me go. Abba! Stop making fun of me. Why would I be a silly hero when I can be a hero? I will be a hero someday. You just wait and see. Ayyo, Azim boy a hero. Abba! When I got older, Abba, just shut up. Abba, you want me to join the stinking business of yours and send me to the best school now in London? I started thinking of a really faraway place. Ammi started crying. She said she would lose her son forever. I promised to come back in 2 years and set up the family business. And, okay, fine, I'll marry a good Muslim girl of your choice. I booked my tickets to London before they changed their minds. I wonder if his business is still afloat the way Fatih claims. I wonder if my Ammi ever got enough to eat. Fatih said Ammi died the first year I spent in prison. I sent word to see my father, but he never came. I sent word again through Fatih saying that after Kasab is hung, it will be my turn. But he hasn't come yet. Fatih has told him I'm innocent. I guess my betrayal must have broken his heart. Abba Jaan. London, the city of my escape, welcome me with foggy grey arms and incessant rain. Exaggerated mime style. One September morning, after 3 hours of studying a textbook on hotel management, fighting nauseating images of me presiding over huge vats of smelly milk running my dad's milk sweet empire, I shut the book and took a walk along the Thames. The air smelt of a pile of freshly washed clothes. It was a bearable cold, what the English call their second summer. Young man sat with a placard which read, "No money for food." And I stopped to stare at him. This guy who was actually free to do his own thing, begged for a bit and kite just enough for his food. No father, no mother to reach out milky tentacles across seas and mess with his mind. No one to press down on his shoulders so that he couldn't stand tall enough. I noticed a couple talking with their heads down close together. And as if on cue, they leaned into each other and kissed, oblivious to passers-by. I pretended to read a pamphlet in my hand, although I was watching over the edge of the paper, hungry for the details. They were eating each other's mouths, savoring each bite gently, and yet with a naked primal ferociousness that made me tingle all over. Could it be like this, I wondered? Does it not have to be furtive gropings in the dark behind cardboard partitions, finding reluctant body parts under hijabs, under which would be the unyielding sari, beneath which would be the underclothes and Allah's quiet frown, endless layers and layers of impediments towards feeling the real thing? The pamphlet in my hand said there was a show of Hamlet on at the Globe Theatre. So having nothing else to do, I walked in. The beginning of the play, I fidgeted around a bit. And then my hero entered. I loved Hamlet from the start. Maybe because he was also as depressed as I was at the time, or maybe because he also had his father's ghost haunting him. I felt such a deep connection to what was happening on stage. I felt that Shakespeare had known me at an earlier age. I had poured my heart out to him and he had given all the words to Hamlet. When it reached to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. I clapped loudly in appreciation. One of the audience members said, "Shish, man," and another said, "Oh, these Asians, I tell you," in a very British accent. When Hamlet reached out, and thus the native hue of resolution, something, 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 thought, something, 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 lose the name of action, I had to sit on my hands to keep them from clapping again, because this was my life exactly. I thought too much, surrendered too much, felt too little action. After the play, I ran out into the drizzle with my arms to the whole wide world like Leonardo DiCaprio on the Titanic. When I was young, my mother had shielded me from the rain, worrying that I would catch a cold. But today, I let the cold water pour down on my face. "You can't see me now, can you, Ammi? I am too far away," I yelled into the cold wind. A woman jumped up in fright and walked on faster. "Stupid Paki," she muttered. Paki? Paki? This was the first time this term had been used in reference to me. Obviously, she didn't know I was an Indian and couldn't care less about the difference. But did I care? I wanted to show that I did not care. I did not care for the definitions. I did not care for the derogatory shackles of nomenclature that apply to the human race, the narrow partitions that people built on themselves. To show how little I cared, I ran to the smallest stall in the by-lane and ordered myself a pork steak. Who said I? Indian, Muslim, Paki, milk boy, whatever, couldn't eat pig flesh. Hands trembled as I cut the meat. I looked around. Nobody was paying any attention to me. I gathered enough courage and put the fork into my mouth. I chewed and I swallowed. Oh, the smoky, bold taste of the meat. I'd never tasted anything so delicious in my entire life. It tasted of freedom. I cleaned it down to the last morsel and mopped up the gravy of this baptism of mine. I was a free man! I ran to the nearest telephone booth to call my parents. I heard my father clearing his throat. "How are the studies going, Azim?" was the first words he said to me. Maybe I should have prepared them better. But with the pork still sitting warm in my stomach, I said, "Not very well, Abbajan. You know, I found out the one thing that I want to do in my life. I want to be an actor. You know those dramas I used to do at school? This is exactly like that. Except people get paid to do it here." My father started screaming and shouting. Then Mommy came on the line. "Oh, your father has taken a third loan this month. Things are not going very well. We're counting the days before we come back and take over the family business. Don't forget your promise to me and don't let the family down, Kanna." My father came back on the line. "Azim Paya, you were always ashamed of your father, weren't you?" Up. There was a click at the other end. That was the last time I spoke to my father. That was the moment I killed my father's spirit. Kasab has been hung this morning. It was a Muslim boy, Salim, who turned in the evidence that implicated me. He was from a local photo studio apparently. And after the riots, After the 59 Hindu car sevaks were burnt to death in the S2 coach of the Sabarmati Express. After the government of Gujarat sat quietly at home while the Hindus took revenge upon thousands of innocent, hapless Muslims. Salim thought it was his duty to document the evidence and hand it in for police filing for eventual compensation for the victims. He stood near the rubble that was his house until just the previous night and kept clicking away. Photos of dismembered limbs, someone's burnt underwear, pile of bricks and bones. At that moment when I threw what was in my hand into the compound of a Hindu house as I screamed, Allahu Akbar! Only to erase from my mind the sight I saw from last night of my colleague's sister being gang raped and a man chased after the women and children with a sword chopping off their heads, gurgling in enjoyment as if he was living out his wildest fantasy. And the headless women tripping on their own burqas and falling over their children. As I watched the night before, I had clutched the tiles on the rooftop where I was hiding, loosened one and aimed at him. But I had missed. This time I was not going to miss. I stood up with my bottle of explosives. I took careful aim. I had seen the man's house from my rooftop hiding place the previous night. I was sure the people inside would have left. No one in their right minds would have stayed, right? Huh? Just last week, Babu Bajrangi, the Hindu fanatic who ran down the streets chopping off heads, has been given life sentence. Did I do what he did? Did I urge people to kill each other? Did I rush after them with swords? I was not a murderer. I just wanted to destroy something. Before that something that fell into my heart like a stone when I heard my colleague's sister begging for mercy destroyed me. I took careful aim. But the photographer boy did not take careful aim. His camera swung to the left and caught me in action. I didn't know all of this until they came for me one morning at my call center in Chennai. They showed me the photograph. I said, yes, that is me, of course. To make a proper hangman's noose, to kill a convicted felon with professional precision, one needs to apply a mixture of oil, soap and mashed bananas on the rope. When applied in correct proportions, this increases the lubrication, makes the noose slippery enough to tighten around the neck. The mask must be placed on the convicted felon very, very carefully so that it doesn't slip off. And one must know the right time to open the gallows trapdoor so that the bloody corpse can fall through. It's not an easy job hanging people. Oh, one needs to kill with a plan, with a clear head. Oh, yes, you need a great deal of courage. Mahadev Malik says this. This is the guy who hung Kasab this morning. Now busy giving interviews to the reporters from the BBC. What does he know about courage, man? Don't they need courage, the ones he's hanging? Don't they need a clear head to know exactly how they're dying and why? I'm clearing my head. Things are getting clearer. I'm clearing my head. Things are getting clearer. I'm clearing my head. Apparently, I'm a Muslim fanatic. I make bombs for jihadist groups. Apparently, I learned something in London, made some connections, joined a call center in Chennai because that would be the least suspicious thing to do. Apparently, I'm not in touch with my family because typically this is how these men live. Sometimes I forgot my name, but they reminded me. They poured water on my face and told me I was Azim Ali J. Then there are others who say my name. But they say it differently, reverentially. Azim Ali J, Azim Ali J. They echoed in the hallways as I passed by. Ali J, Kaide Azim, Kaide Azim. Watching me like beady-eyed mosquitoes for a sign, for a show. Makes my skin crawl. Makes me wonder if I still exist in the same skin that I was born with. No point telling them that I don't belong to the Muslim brethren. No point walking away. They keep that stage ready, the spotlight trained on me, making sure that the waiting role haunted me with its dreaded possibilities. They said I was Azim Ali J. Babu Bajrangi has been brought into prison. He's in my next cell now, replacing Kasab. I didn't go to see him and try to get a glimpse of him like the rest of them. But this morning when two Muslim convicts almost jumped on him and choked him to death, they would have killed him right there if one of them hadn't chickened out because he saw the guards coming. I was watching all of this. For years I had avoided watching them because they knew me as Azim, the man who did those things. For years I had made it clear that I did not need that adulation. But today they caught me looking at them. Their eyes were hungry for my approval. In a moment of weakness, in a moment of utter loneliness, I stepped into my shoes. I took the stage. I gave them the thumbs up sign. In that moment, the power to approve gave me a golden scepter. I was a king. I was a governor general. I accepted the crown. What was I supposed to do? Man needs family around him, right? Especially at his deathbed. The real reason I joined the call center in Chennai was that I ran out of money in London. I failed at several acting auditions, although I was told I had potential. When I had just enough money for my flight ticket back home, I lost my nerve and returned to Chennai. Without an undergraduate degree, it was difficult finding a well-paying job. That's when I bumped into an old friend of mine who told me all about call centers. A place where a person who spoke English fluently, without even a college degree, could earn enough of a salary to afford a car loan. As I walked through the swinging glass doors, that interview room became my stage. The cold white lights focused on me like spotlights. I took a deep breath and exhaled the last traces of Palkar and the milk boy out of my drab, smelly upbringing. I was just back from the UK, I said in a clipped accent. I would love to learn my theatrical skills to a prestigious call center such as theirs. Performance paid off. I bagged myself a junior management position. That's where I met my Bharati. The last time I saw my Bharati was the day we went to meet her father. The plan was to convince him into giving me his daughter in marriage. All morning I practiced in front of the mirror, the walk of a hero capable of taking care of a girl. After all, I was an actor. I could goat-eating Muslims, polluted filth, dirty slum dwellers. I heard Bharati screaming, "What kind of a journalist are you, Dad? I'm your father first and you will do as I say. I will kill any stinking Muslim that dares lay a hand on you." Bharati was sobbing. I grabbed my courage in both hands and I walked right in. "Sir, I'm Azim Ali, the person your daughter wants to marry." He was about to say something, but I said very quickly, "Sir, you're a respected journalist, sir. I'm sure your blessings on a marriage would be a great example of the Hindu-Muslim unity you keep writing about. Don't you think so?" I ended in what I thought was the most reasonable tone of voice. He took a step closer to me. And he spat on my face. Spittle caught me just above my left eyebrow and rolled on my cheek. I know I should have wiped it away and said something or grabbed Bharati, but instead I just walked away. I was worried about the stink. All of a sudden I had to make sure I wasn't stinking. Apparently, I'm not the Azim, the man who did those things. The real Azim has been caught. They caught him with a fake student ID in a London university from where he'd been masterminding a few bomb attacks. He'll come to be brought into prison. I will be sent out into the outside world. They muttered something about how in India a man is guilty until proven innocent. I told Pati the good news. She cried. On August 15th, Independence Day, they will release some prisoners as a sign of goodwill. But I apparently represent a whole heap of mistakes and loopholes. So I've been told there'll be compensation. Plenty to live on for a while. This on the condition that I get away quietly a day before, on August 14th. Pakistan's Independence Day. Without ceremony, graciously accepting their goodwill and their apologies. I have been told that my freedom should not be an occasion for recrimination or introspection. It should be a Kodak moment. Say cheese, smile please. It's funny how once when I had everything, my whole life ahead of me, I felt that life was not really worthwhile. But today, when I have nothing, not even the ghost of my handicapped spider, Hamlet, I feel that my life should leave a mark. To that end, I've kept my body in tip-top condition and I feel I am ready. To be or not to be, to be, to be or not to be, to be, to be or not to be, to be, to be or not to be, to be or not to be. That is the question, whether it's nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, take arms against the sea, and by opposing end them. The sun's in my heart, and I'm ready for love. Still in pretty good form, huh? Still in pretty good shape. The whole world is out there. The whole world is a stage with every actor waiting in the wings for his cue. You'd give me a role, won't you? Fatih tells me I will take to Facebook like a duck to water. Facebook is good for getting in touch with people one hasn't seen in years, Fatih says. Bharati will be just that kind of person who'll spend a lot of her time on Facebook. I'm quite sure of that. Fatih came anyways. She said she saw Mohan at the bus stop the other day. May not have been just the other day like she said. I think she was telling me this because she knew I would be out of here soon. She said the Pandit and Bharati were holding a 10-year-old child by the hand and laughing about something. They were laughing so hard that they didn't see her. Apparently there are no Fiat cars on the road now. There used to be so many of them. Everything will be strange. Without the Fiats, I mean. Isn't it scary? Everything has changed. It's a big bad world out there. Brothers must stick together, they said. I told them I believe in the Prophet. Live to do all that he asks us to do. I told them I'd never touched a morsel of pork in my life. Never given my heart to a girl of another faith. I will wait for the day of judgment on which I shall receive a... They're giving me assignments now. Contact numbers. I am the spokesperson to the outside world. They have a plan. I mean, we have a plan. There are things that need to be done. Heroes are required. Speeches need to be made. Then things will be even. Things need to be even. Balance. Restore the balance in the universe. I'm a part of a nation that is struggling for a voice, for a firm foothold in this world. I am a leader, they said. They'll come for me now. They'll open that door and they will take me away. Apparently there are no Fiat cars on the road now. Everything will be strange. Without the Fiats, I mean. Everything has changed. What's the world without Fiats? Just 2 minutes, sir. Thank you. It was a cold December night, 6 months after I met my Bharati, a week before we went to meet her father. After watching the night show of the movie Titanic, I asked her to marry me. She accepted, as far as possible for a girl to accept with her parents' approval still pending. Dizzy with happiness, I persuaded her to come on a ride with me on my second-hand two-wheeler down the East Coast Road. With her riding pillion, hugging me from behind, raced along the beach road, the cold air numbing us into speechlessness. I spent nearly half my salary on a meal for two at a 5-star beach hotel, acting as if I'd hung out at 5-star beach hotels all my life. It was close to midnight. The bike refused to start. I flashed my brand new credit card and booked ourselves a hotel room. Bharti called her parents to say that she was staying over at a friend's place. The only room available was the wedding suite, so the hotel was forced to upgrade us. There was no plan at that time. We were just meant to drink coffee on the house using the complimentary sachets in the room and maybe enjoy a cuddle. But not having a plan is a very dangerous thing. Things can explode or implode. The course of our lives can change forever. I remember the night as if it was yesterday. Her shy smile, the bedside lamp lighting up those things shaped like apples I most wanted to see. I must go now, they're calling for me. Fatih said the boy, the 10-year-old boy standing between Mohan and Bharti the other day, looked exactly like me. I'm not surprised. So was that why she was in such a tearing hurry to get married? So what did you think my story was? A Bollywood film? But I've planted the seed of doubt. I've planted the seed of doubt. The seed is as good as the tree. You could say it's the battle won. Could a baby belong to both fathers but one mother? Is the hero the one who gets the girl or the one who gets to her first? You can argue for years about whether she belongs to him or whether she belongs to me. You can shed tears, you can shed blood, but the question will remain. Only a once upon a time can untangle the lines of several stories, several threads. Only if you lose yourself in the story can you find the plot. But I must go now. There are people inside who need me to go on the outside world. I am their leader. I have a role to play. I must take arms against a sea of troubles. And by opposing, end them. so dark.
Mohandas Gandhi meets with Muhammad Ali Jinnah in an attempt to bring the Hindus and the Muslims together. In an India always torn by the strife of castes, Mahatma Gandhi has tried for some semblance of unity. Again, it is something he failed to achieve. He parted friends with Jinnah, he says, but the Indian problem remains.
जाने